Good evening, everybody. Let's cultivate our motivation and really see the faults of the faults of self-centeredness. Now, when we just focus on what I want, what I like, what's good for me, how instead of actually fulfilling our needs and wishes, creates a lot more unhappiness in our mind as we become very hypersensitive, very prickly, very easily offended, and very demanding. Whereas when we have a mind that has released the self-centeredness even a little bit and opens our eyes to look at the situation of others and cares about them, then we're more peaceful ourselves, and the situation we create around us is more peaceful as well. And so there's different types of self-centeredness, the kind we have in our daily life and the kind we have in our spiritual practice. And we want to abandon both and instead generate the bodhicitta, aspiring to benefit sentient beings, and in order to do that, to attain full enlightenment. And so with that kind of motivation, we'll listen and share the Dharma this evening. So we can even see the disadvantages of the self-centeredness when we look at the kitties. And they're acting no differently than us. Yeah. But when we aren't sensitive, to the wants and needs of others, then we're acting like a kitten, not just a child, but a kitten who is adorable and sweet, that doesn't have a clue about how to show respect to older cats. Just like us, when we act like little children and don't have a clue how to show respect to other sentient beings. Yeah. Just thinking about what we want and what pleases us. So, we can see the disadvantages in our daily life, as shown with the cats chasing each other. Like people do. They chase each other, don't they? I call you and you call me, and we say nasty words, send you a bad email, and you send me a bad email. The same thing the cats do. So we can see the faults in that, yeah. But so that's one level of self-centeredness. But another level is when it comes to our spiritual practice and the motivation for our practice, and when we are seeking liberation from samsara for ourselves alone, without considering the situation of all living beings. Okay, so that's a different kind of self-centeredness. We may be very sweet to other people on a day-to-day basis, but when it comes to our practice, our real motivation is to free ourselves, And so this is the big thing that we want to overcome in the Bodhisattva vehicle. And it takes a lot of time and energy to do this. You know, His Holiness always says that realizing yet emptiness is difficult to understand, but once you finally understand it, it's not too difficult to gain the realizations. Whereas bodhicitta is easy to understand. The disadvantages of self-centeredness are easy to understand, but actually doing it is very, very hard. And it takes a lot of familiarization and habit and, you know, real care and effort. Yeah, over time, repeatedly. Yeah, so that's the kind of mind that we have to have in approaching bodhicitta. Oh, getting the step by step. Really. Just like human beings. Why do we laugh at the cats, but we don't laugh at human beings? You know? Maybe because cats just hiss and growl, and the worst thing they do is jump on each other, but human beings drop bombs and, you know, do much more terrible things to each other. Okay, so we'll continue with the quiz. Okay. I think we're on the seventh question? Sixth question. Okay. So what is the demarcation of entering each of the 5 fundamental vehicle paths? Okay. So how do you enter the path of accumulation, the fundamental vehicle? What's the demarcation? Okay. As usual, you all talk about
aspire for liberation.
Okay, yeah, you generate renunciation and aspire for liberation. Don't we have some of that right now? Mm-hmm. Haven't you had some meditations where you have strong feelings of renunciation? So have you entered the path of accumulation? Why not?
It's not night and day.
It's not night and day. How about even day? You're sleeping at night. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to have that as a continual thing, you know? We get glimpses of it and we have powerful experiences of it, which are good because that shows us that our mind is developing and that we can actually train our mind in this way. And, you know, it's possible to get some experience of these meditations. Yeah. But why is it that we lose that experience? Grasping at what? Ignorant.
Objects of attachment.
Objects of attachment take us away. Huh?
And aversion.
Yeah, attachment and aversion to other people. We get the appearance of this life is so strong and we get completely wrapped up in it. You know, whatever I contact with my senses is real. You know, so that is really desirable and that is really awful. And so we get completely locked into whatever our senses happen to be perceiving and however we're interpreting that. And the idea of future lives, the idea of samsara, goes bye-bye because all we're concentrating on is the appearance of this life, which is so strong. Yeah. So it's really important to continually remember, you know, it's just the appearance of this life and it's impermanent, you know, it comes, it goes, it's in the nature of dukkha. There's nothing tangible there to cling on to. Yeah, because the things that happen in this life, just, you know, some attractive object comes and we're just mesmerized, aren't we? Totally gone. Yeah. Like that with some kind of pleasant object. Like that with some kind of awful object. Yeah. And we just stay like that. Yeah. We think we can't concentrate, but when we have attachment, when we have strong anger, oh, we're focused, aren't we? Yeah. But it's complete, delusion. Complete delusion. But we're not seeing it at the time. And instead, we think whatever it is we're so latched onto is so important. So incredibly important. What this person thinks of me is just, this is so important. They cannot think something badly of me. And because otherwise I'll suffer so much stuff. And anyway, they're wrong. And, and we get so involved in it. Yeah. Or somebody did something that we don't want them to do. And, oh, how can they do that? This is terrible. The world is falling apart. Yeah. And it's our little world that we've created, and then we just get locked into these things. When they talk about, objects of the senses and attachment to the objects of the senses, it's not just, see good, taste good food and see nice possessions and stuff like that. It's not just the direct contact with these objects that is either, painful or pleasurable, but it's also the meaning we give to the contact with these objects. And remember when we did the exercise about money and what does money mean to us? And, money just isn't some green stuff, or other colors depending on what country you're in. And it isn't just what gives us the possibility of owning things, but it can indicate success, power, freedom, love, security. So when we look, it's not just the contact with the money that is getting at us, but all these other things that the money seems linked into. Okay? In the same way, when we get attached to a person or have aversion to a particular person, that person can also symbolize love and security and success, and doing what we want to do and, being who we want to be. And so it can indicate, a few words from that person can indicate all sorts of other things that we're very, very attached to. Our status, our reputation, whether other people approve of us or disapprove of us. So it's not just that the words themselves sound nice or unpleasant, but what they indicate, about other issues that we're very, very entrenched in. Okay? So don't just limit it to thinking about I'm attached to the cantaloupe or something. It's I remember saying this because one time I was at a monastic conference and there was one senior monk from the Thai tradition and he was giving a talk and he was talking about when he first ordained, when it came to lunchtime, they had, the most magnificent mangoes at the monastery where he was staying. And so every lunchtime, he'd have a mango, and it's like he can see this incredible greed for the mango arising, and how am I going to deal with this, attachment to the mango, and I won't eat it, but then my mind's unhappy, but I do eat it, but then I know I've given into attachment, and and he just talked about how he really dwelt on this mango, day and night, and tried to deal with it. And then I was the next speaker, and I said, you know, I didn't have the luxury of contemplating mangoes. I was at a Dharma center where I was made the disciplinarian of a bunch of macho monks who were criticizing me and taking my work out of my office and telling me I was the biggest hindrance to the development of the Dharma Center that ever existed, and that they were going to call our teacher and tell him immediately about all the horrible things I'm doing. And I said, my mind was consumed with some other things, you know. For me, meditating on attachment to a mango would have been luxury. You know? So, you know, it's just, well, whatever situation you're in, you have to work with it. Whatever object of attachment or aversion there is, you have to work with it. But, you know, I was thinking, gee, you know, if I take a mango or don't take a mango, it's not going to affect so many people. You know, it's me and my greed, and definitely it needs to be dealt with. Yeah. But, you know, how I react to these people who are criticizing me publicly and trashing me and threatening to call my teacher and taking my work and making fun of me in meetings and all sorts of things. You know, that was much, that, you know, how I responded to that was, you know, much, the emotion was much more intense, and the actions that I did out of that would be much stronger. Yeah, and so I had to be really careful about those kinds of things, and I usually failed miserably. Okay, so what I'm getting at, you know, because what was endangering me was not anything physical, you know, it wasn't like I was afraid of losing my food, but for me it was all about, you know, approval and reputation and power and all sorts of other things, yeah, that are just as strong as, you know, attachment to mangoes. Stronger, maybe. More harmful, more potentially harmful. They're becoming friends slowly. Okay, so then that's the path of accumulation. So renunciation, so we have to strengthen it and develop it, you know, within ourselves. And on the bodhisattva path too, we especially need renunciation. But there it's not just renunciation of our own samsara, it's renouncing the samsara of all living beings. The second path, what's the demarcation of entering it?
The union of serenity and insight.
The
union of serenity and insight.
The unity of serenity and incense. And what's the path called that you enter when you attain the unity of serenity and insight? Incense? Insight.
It's a Hindu practice. Right station.
Okay, is it just the union? What's the name of the path, first of all? Preparation. Now, is it just the union of serenity and insight?
Conceptual understanding of it.
It has to be the union of serenity and insight on emptiness. Okay, so is that conceptual or non-conceptual?
Non-conceptual.
It's conceptual.
Oh, I'm sorry, conceptual. There's an image there.
Yeah, it's conceptual.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and what does that mean, that it's conceptual?
It means that you don't have a direct perception of it, but that you perceive it as an image somehow in your mind. There's an image of emptiness or a veil.
Yeah, there's the medium of the conceptual appearance, so you're not perceiving emptiness directly. Okay, It's a conceptual mind. Okay. So is that mind no good because it's conceptual? You would like to have it? Yeah, kind of good, huh? Okay, is it sufficient?
No.
No. Okay, because you really need the direct one. Okay, but we don't put down the conceptual realization of emptiness. Now, one interesting thing is that you can have a conceptual realization of emptiness even before you enter the path. Okay, what do you call them? The high faculty disciples, can have a conceptual realization of emptiness even before they enter the path. Yeah. It's usually described in terms of the bodhisattva path. I would think it might happen with hearers too, although I'm not sure. But you can have it, before you enter the path, but you don't have the unity of serenity and insight on it. Okay. So what's the unity of serenity and insight? What does that mean?
It means that you retain serenity and that you're generating the pliancy that comes from serenity through the analysis of emptiness.
Okay, so it's through the analysis of emptiness that you're generating the pliancy that induces the serenity. Yeah, because usually analysis disturbs serenity, disturbs single-pointedness. But here the analysis is very refined and it induces the pliancy that leads to the serenity. So it's very special that way. Okay.
It's hard to imagine what that analysis could be. It's something that is so subtle or so fine. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we always think of analysis as being very gross, like intellectual discourse. That's not what it means here, clearly. And this gets quite, confusing for people when they hear about analytical meditation. They think that you're just, chattering in your mind. But here it means really delving in and investigating, how does something exist? How really does something exist? So you're not just blah, blah, blah in your head, okay? But you're investigating.
So Venerable, you're still doing a thinking process, and why doesn't that disturb the serenity?
Okay, when the analysis is very gross, you're thinking with words and everything. And so that disturbs the single-pointedness because you're changing objects. Here, the analysis is very refined. It's not a gross thinking process. It's really investigating how something can exist within having a very, very quiet mind. Okay, so it's not just intellectual. Oh, the first point is this and the second point is this and like that. You've gone through all of that, but this is really, not just trying to understand the arguments, but really searching, how does the I exist? Yeah. Okay. On the path of accumulation, what do you spend most of your, why is it called path of accumulation? What are you doing? So you have to accumulate merit. And why is it called path of preparation? It's preparing you for the direct realization. Okay. Then the third path is path of seeing, and the demarcation for entering that? Okay, direct realization of emptiness. So this is a non-conceptual mind at this point. Okay? So to this mind, the mind of meditative equipoise on emptiness, what appears to that mind?
The lack of true existence.
Yeah, the lack of true existence, the emptiness of true existence. Does anything else appear to that mind? No. If you're meditating on the on the emptiness of the self. Does the self appear to the mind? No. Okay. Does anything else beside emptiness appear to the mind?
No.
Do you have the idea, I'm realizing emptiness?
No.
You don't have the idea that you're realizing emptiness. Then when, how do you know you've realized emptiness?
Afterward, you come out.
Afterwards, when you come out, then what happens? Then you go, where am I? What happened?
Call your teacher. You like nonsense. Called serenity.
Okay, so what is it that knows you've realized emptiness?
Exalted wisdom.
No, what mind knows you've realized emptiness?
The conceptual mind.
It's a conceptual mind. It's a conventional mind that comes after your meditative equipoise. When you arise from your your meditative equipoise knows emptiness. Your conventional valid cognizer afterwards knows that you've realized emptiness. Okay, and it's also the one that validates the existence of emptiness. Okay.
Logic, you mean?
Huh?
Like through logic?
No, well, you've perceived emptiness directly, but when you're perceiving emptiness directly, that mind knows just emptiness. It doesn't know, oh, emptiness exists. It just knows emptiness. Okay? So even the existence of emptiness, you know, that comes through a conventional, reliable cognizer. Okay?
The exalted wisdom of subsequent attainment?
Yeah, that's going to be one of those minds, you know, of subsequent attainment that knows that. Okay? So, what is unique about this meditative equipoise on emptiness? Is it erroneous?
Oh, no, the only mind of sentient beings that isn't mistaken.
It's the only mind of sentient beings that is not mistaken. What does mistaken mean?
That the appearance of true existence
Yeah.
is gone.
Right. That's non-mistaken. Non-mistaken means there's no appearance of true existence.
Mistaken is where it does appear as being truly existent, although this mind would know that it was just an appearance.
Yeah. So in the subsequent attainment, there's still the appearance of true existence, but your mind knows that that's a false appearance. Do we have the appearance of true existence right now?
Yes.
Do we know it's a false appearance?
No. Well, we've heard about that.
Keep telling us.
Are we even able to identify the appearance of true existence?
No, it's all mixed
No,
up.
it's mixed.
It's really hard to identify the appearance of true existence. Yeah? Yeah?
Before, when you were talking about a couple weeks ago, the reliable cognizers that are not erroneous, but they're still mistaken, because the appearing object is still the appearance of true existence, but the apprehended object is correctly apprehended. So, can you explain what the difference between apprehended is and appearing? Is apprehended?
Oh, okay. So we say a mind is erroneous if the object if it's, you know, erroneous with respect to its apprehended object, the object it's actually getting at, and it's mistaken if the appearing object is incorrect. So what that means is the cup appears to me, it's appearing truly existent. That appearance is mistaken. Okay? If I grasp the cup as truly existent, then I am apprehending a truly existent cup. That mind is totally erroneous because there's no such thing as a truly existent cup. Okay, so right now when I'm not grasping, there's just the appearance of a truly existent cup, to the appearance factor of the mind. But when I assent to that appearance and I say, oh, that is a truly existent cup, it is mine, it's not yours, I'm taking it, you know, then I'm apprehending a truly existent cup. Okay, so the apprehension is where the grasping is coming in. Okay, the appearance is a cognitive obscuration. The grasping at it is an afflictive obscuration. Okay, so we say a mind is erroneous with respect to the apprehended object, what it's actually, you know, cognizing, but it is mistaken with respect to the appearing object. Okay, so when you have a conceptual realization of emptiness, that mind is not erroneous because it's perceiving emptiness, but it is mistaken because it's perceiving it through this veil of a conceptual appearance. When there's direct perception of emptiness, that's neither erroneous nor mistaken. When you come out of that meditative equipoise and perceive objects again, they appear truly existent and they're mistaken in that way. Okay. If you are walking down the road and you look at Sally's scarecrow and you think it's a person, okay, what is that mind? That's erroneous. Okay. If you look at the scarecrow and it just looks like it always looks to you, what's that?
Mistaken.
That's mistaken because it's appearing truly existent. You still can know it's a scarecrow. Okay, so that's why they say that reliable cognizers, conventional reliable cognizers, you know, can still be mistaken, but they aren't erroneous. Okay, because we still need some kind of way to talk about conventional things and say that the minds that perceive those things are reliable. Otherwise, we just destroy conventionalities if we say, you know, even the appearance of true existence is erroneous. Then we kind of destroy everything. But by saying, you know, this is a clock and a sheet of paper, a clock, sorry, and a telephone and a sheet of paper, and this is incense, and this is a television, and okay, you know, so you can still discern things, you know, reliable or not. If I say it's a TV, that's erroneous, okay?
So at any time an affliction arises in regard to an object, then you know that it's also erroneous.
Yeah, whenever there is affliction, the mind is erroneous.
And so then what's it called? If you go from a conventional reliable cognizer that suddenly is grasping, what's that mind called? Just an afflicted mind?
That's grasping into existence, or it's attachment or anger, or whatever it is.
So the name of that mind would be just that?
Grasping.
Okay.
Yeah, grasping into existence. Okay? And we go very easily from, you know, because from the appearance to the grasping, and we don't even notice it. You know, and from the grasping to the affliction, we don't even notice it. And we never think, you know, when we have an affliction, you know, it's hard for us to even figure out when we have an affliction in our mind. And even when we do, when we say, oh, there's attachment in my mind, we don't really always go to, my mind is, that cognition is erroneous, you know. Or when I'm angry, you know, that mind is erroneous. It is not perceiving its objects correctly. We don't go there. I'm right, is where we go. Yeah. I'm angry. Yeah, I'm angry. And and it's your fault and I'm right. Or maybe you've been to a few Dharma talks. Oh, I'm angry. Well, that's not so good. Yeah, it creates some negative karma, but still this person is a jerk and somebody's got to do something about it. So for the benefit of sentient beings, I think I'll clobber him. You know, or tell him off or ruin his reputation or whatever it is. Okay? Then, next path, fourth path, what's that?
Path of meditation.
Path of meditation. And what's the demarcation there?
Got rid of all the acquired afflictions.
Okay, you've eliminated the acquired afflictions and,
Abandonment of the innate conception of inherent existence.
yeah, you're beginning to abandon the innate conception of true existence. Okay, so when your meditation is strong enough, yeah, when your realization of emptiness is strong enough through the accumulation of merit, that you start abandoning the innate levels of afflictions. Okay, that's when you enter the path of meditation. Why is it called meditation? Yeah, it means to familiarize. Okay, so your mind is getting more and more and more familiar. Okay, and then the fifth path?
No more learning.
Path of no more learning. And what's the demarcation for that on the fundamental vehicle?
All the innate afflictions have been eliminated.
Okay, so all the innate and the acquired afflictions have been eliminated. And you are now a arhat. Okay, so arhat often is translated as foe destroyer. What does that mean?
Destroy the foes of the afflictions.
Yes, destroy the foe of the afflictions. Okay. Well, we got through one question. That's good. We'll continue the quiz next week because I want to divide it half and half between reviewing this and then talking about bodhicitta. Okay, so next week we'll go into more in-depth analysis of the fundamental vehicle path of seeing and path of meditation. Okay? Okay, so last week we talked about equanimity, and equalizing friend, enemy, and stranger so that we have an equal feeling towards people. And we talked about how our partiality is very much due to evaluating people in relationship to how they relate to us in particular, but thinking that they actually have those qualities objectively in themselves. And so that's one reason why our friend, enemy, and stranger categories are wrong. And another reason is because the categories change so much. If people were really good people and really evil people, if they were really friends and really enemies and really strangers, they wouldn't go back and forth between all these categories so much. But they do. Okay? So we want to come to a feeling of equanimity that is equally open towards everybody. Yeah. So that, I think, must be a tremendously beautiful state of mind. Yeah, you don't even have love and compassion yet, Love and compassion must be really wonderful. But just even that equanimity whereby, you greet everybody and your mind doesn't have an instant reaction of friend, foe, and neutral, But as your mind just greets somebody and is completely receptive to them, knowing that it's useless to make any of these categories. Wouldn't that be nice, on a day-to-day thing, to look at people, in an equal way? That doesn't mean that you treat everybody completely equally, okay? You regard them equally in terms of your openness and your care and concern for them, but it doesn't mean you treat them equally. Okay, for example, you wouldn't give a 2-year-old matches, but you would give an adult matches. Okay, you treat a 2-year-old different than you treat an adult. Okay, you treat your boss different than you'd treat your spouse. I hope. You know, you treat your neighbor different than you treat your child. So there's still social roles and social conventions, okay, that we follow. But inside of our own heart, you know, we're not discriminating friend, enemy, and stranger, okay? But we still relate to people in a way that's very practical. Yeah. I once read something about you give people the amount of trust that they can bear. You know? And I think that's really wise, because if we can assess how much trust and in what areas of trust, you know, people are worthy of that trust or can bear that trust, then we'll have good relationships with them. Where what happens often is when we trust people who you know, can't bear that level of trust, or we trust them in an area where they're not skilled. Okay, so our trust hasn't been given in a really good way, and things wind up quite sticky and messy. Okay, so there's still these social conventions and still ways where you know, look at people's aptitude and people's ability, and you trust or give them information or work together with them on a project according to their ability and capacity. But you can do that without bias and prejudice. Okay? You getting what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean that we treat everybody equally. Yeah. Okay. I mean, when you serve the cat food, you put the cat food on the floor. You don't. I know the cat would like you to put it on the table sometimes, but we don't do that. Okay? So we treat different sentient beings differently. We give sentient beings different kinds of food. Yeah, we say different kinds of things to them. We do different things with different sentient beings. Okay, so it doesn't mean that everybody's equal in terms of their abilities. It means that our feeling for them is equal. So this is really important, otherwise we can get really quite confused about things. Okay? Then there's two ways to develop bodhicitta. One is the 7-point cause and effect instruction, and the other is equalizing and exchanging self for others. So we'll look at the 7-point cause and effect instruction. I'll list them out to start with, and then we'll go into them. So first, seeing sentient beings as your mother or as your parents. Second, remembering their kindness as your parent. Third, wanting to repay it. 4 is what's called heartwarming love. 5 is compassion. 6 is the great resolve. And those 6 are the causes. And then the 7th is bodhicitta, and that's the effect. So that's why it's called the 7-point cause and effect. Okay? First 6 are causes, 1 are effect. But the first 6, they progress from one to another. Each one brings on the one that comes above it. So you have to practice them in order. Okay, so the first one, seeing sentient beings as our mother. This involves understanding rebirth, which is a whole other topic that I wasn't particularly going to go into, although I can if you want. But if we assume that there's rebirth, that at the end of this life, it's not just blankness and nothingness. Yeah, that there's some kind of continuity of consciousness, continuity of life. Yeah. Then, and we see that there's been no beginning to the mind, because the mind always has a cause, which was the previous moment of mind, the previous moment of clarity and awareness. And because there's no beginning to the mind, because there's no initial point of creation, no absolute creator. Yeah, there's always been a mind stream. So then we've been born infinite times. So in all these infinite rebirths, there's been plenty of opportunity for everybody to have been our parents. Okay. Now they usually point out the mother because people are usually closer to their mother. You know, we want to be gender equal nowadays, so we say father. Yeah, but you know, I think often because the mother is the nurturing one, at least most often, you know, and there's that special relationship because we came out of our mother's body, that, you know, the idea of being nurtured by somebody is very, very strong. Now, let's keep back on this thing about sentient beings have been our mother. So we've had infinite rebirths, so there's plenty of times for everybody to have been our mother, to have been our father, many, many times, okay? Now you could say, well, also in infinity, there's the chance that it's never happened. Well, maybe. But, you know, let's not get bogged down in that. The purpose of this argument, because I know somebody who got very bogged down in that, you know. But the purpose of this argument is for us to see that we've had a very close relationship with everybody. That there's nobody who's been a complete stranger to us. And we've had this very close relationship of parent-child. You know, with every single living being. And it's interesting in the Lamrim, you know, when they're quoting this to prove this, they point out some quotations, sutra quotations, and I found those sutras in the Pali Canon. Yeah, where it talks about the beginninglessness of cyclic existence, and how even if you had, you know, jujubes, they must be beans, berries.
Juniper berries.
Juniper berries. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, there are some kind of berries, juju berries, aren't there? Yeah. Okay, so juniper berries. You know, if you had filled the whole earth with juniper berries, you know, and then counted them that many times, you know, that many times does not even express the number of times that each sentient being has been our parent, okay? So, you know, it can be amazing thinking about these things, you know, to sit there sometime and think, well, how many juniper berries would, you know, even fit in the Abbey's 240 acres, and yet our 240 acres is nothing compared to the size of the country, which is nothing compared to the size of the you know, planet. And our planet is so tiny anyway. And so just really thinking, wow, you know, all these sentient beings have been my parents. I've been in this very intimate relationship with them so many times like that. Okay, so it changes your mind, how you look at them. So instead of saying, oh, this is some just dude who's walking down the street, you know, it's like, oh, but I've had this really incredible personal relationship with this person. Yeah, they aren't a stranger. Yeah, and they aren't who they appear to be in this life. Okay, because again, we get so hooked into who people appear to be in this life, and that's the source of all of our judgments of other people. You know, this one's too fat, this one's too thin, this one's old, this one's young, this one's good looking, this one's bad looking, this one looks like they're rich, this one looks like they're poor. You know, all these discriminations that we make, you know, which are very beneficial, and on the basis of which we often decide who's our friend and who we're going to talk to and who we're going to hang out with, that these things are actually, you know, really kind of stupidagios, because none of these people have always been who they're appearing to be in this lifetime. You know, they once were our mother. Yeah, they once were our father. We'd had this intimate relationship with them. Yeah, and they used to pick us up in the middle of the night and feed us. And they used to change our diaper, and they used to teach us to speak, and they used to protect us from danger, you know. So this kind of, you might look at a street person and say, oh, this dirty street person, but they used to be our mother. Yeah. You're going to say, but wait a minute, that's too much, But then they say, okay, well, what about if you were raised by your mother until you were, 2 or 3, and she took really good care of you and pampered you and took care of all your needs and fed you in the middle of the night and everything, how mothers take care of babies. And then there was some kind of war, a natural disaster, and you were separated. And then years later, maybe, 30, 40 years later, you're walking down the street and there's this dirty street person sitting there. And you start to go right past them, and then you do a double take and you realize it's your mother that you haven't seen in 30, 40 years. How are you going to feel about the street person then? Realizing that that's your mother. Yeah, you're going to have a very, very different reaction, aren't you? Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. We may not realize, oh, I remember, you were my mother 14 lives ago, but if we can train our mind when we see any sentient being, even that bug you just took off the window, and to think, that bug was my dear mother who I haven't seen, I've been separated from in all these lifetimes. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about and to play with. Yeah. And to realize that our mother of this life hasn't always been our mother. And the people that, and even different life forms, bugs and dogs and, all sorts of different life forms, that those beings haven't always been that. They've also been different life forms, and they've often, been our dear parents who've taken care of us. Yeah. So they say that Lama Atisha, whenever he went somewhere, and met, like even when he was out with the donkeys, he would say, hello, Mom. I find that quite sweet. Yeah. Can you imagine any little being that you look at? Or imagine, even somebody that you might initially look at it like, oh, this person looks threatening. And instead of like going with that appearance, to say, oh, but this is my mother. Yeah. That person may still be threatening, but if you relate to them like your mother, it's going to change the dynamic a whole lot. Whereas if you relate to them as, oh, this is some fearful being, that's going to really bring on their aggression. Okay? If you relate to them as your mother, it changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? Yeah? Okay? So, similarly, if there's somebody who's really irritating you, you think, oh, this is my mother. You might say, well, that is my mother. But that's when we need to move not just from the first step, but to the second step, which is remembering the kindness of our mother. Okay, so it's not just seeing them as our mother, but remembering their kindness when they were our mother. Okay? And now here, some people have difficulties. They say, but I live in a very abusive family. And my mother wasn't always kind. My father wasn't always kind. So what they say in that case is, well, then whoever you remember from when you were a kid who was kind and who did take care of you, do the meditation in terms of that person. However, I do feel at some point we do need to come back to our mother and father. That for a while we may meditate on the kindness of whoever took care of us when we were little, and that kindness was very great because that person kept us alive. But to just come back to the kindness of our mother and father who gave us this body, which is the basis of our precious human life. And, you know, beyond everything else they did, the bottom line is they gave us this life. You know, that's the bottom line. And we cherish this life. It's the foundation upon which we can get out of cyclic existence. And so we have appreciation for our parents, you know, just even because of that, because they gave us this body. And then even if our parents weren't able to take care of us, you know, even if they had substance abuse problems or who knows what kind of problems, they did make arrangements for somebody to take care of us. Yeah, they didn't, you know, completely abandon us. They arranged for somebody to take care of us if they couldn't take care of us. Yeah, so we have to appreciate this. Yeah. My little sister's adopted, you know, her birth mother was in a situation where she couldn't take care of her. But she was very kind and gave the child up, and as a result I have a sister. So I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, so, you know, you really think about that somebody did take care of you, did take care of us. Yeah, and the very proof of that is that we're here. Yeah, so that stops the mind that says, but my whole childhood was full of abuse. If our whole childhood was full of abuse, we would have died. Okay? Our whole child wasn't. There were people who were kind to us. Yeah? Sometimes the people who were kind to us were also abusive. Yeah? But we have to recognize the kindness, you know, and we have to recognize that our parents were doing the best they could given the circumstances they were in. Yeah? I mean, we all wanted ideal parents. Nobody got them. Yeah? Because such a thing doesn't exist. Yeah, but they certainly did the best they could. No? And sometimes our parents were really faced with very difficult situations when they had young kids that they were trying to take care of. You know, they were dealing with their own problems, they were dealing with illness, they were dealing with, you know, lost jobs, they were dealing with their own personal turmoil, inner turmoil. They were dealing, you know, with PTSD from being in a war. They were dealing with who knows what, okay? But they were doing the best they could. And so I think to appreciate that factor in our parents, you know, we're not saying that there was no abuse and that everything was Pollyanna. But we're not saying that everything was wrong either, because everything wasn't wrong. Okay? So we're trying to, you know, and this is one of the big challenges I find that we face, is how to hold both people's beautiful qualities and their afflictions in one person and accept that. Because we always want to make somebody all good or all bad. And nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Yeah? And to hold that. Yes, this person had some really wonderful qualities and they really did do some wonderful things for me. And yes, there were problems. Yeah? That's reality. So let's keep it balanced in some way. And let's bring our attention back again and again to the kindness that we received when we were growing up. Because the more we bring it again and again to everything we didn't have, the more unhappy we're going to be and the more lopsided we're going to be. Yeah? I remember going to one of these conferences. I was asked to lead a breakout group, but I went to the plenary session. It was one of these self-help guys, and he was going on, you know, going on about, you know, how his father never took him to baseball games, and, you know, this was so traumatic because all the other boys' fathers took them to baseball games and his father was never there, and on about the pain and suffering that this caused him. And I was thinking, yeah, it clearly caused him some pain and suffering, but if that's all he focuses on, that's all he's going to feel. And I'm sure his father did some wonderful things too. Yeah, and he needs to learn to look and see the things that his father did do. And that, you know, his father was dealing with whatever personal limitations and external conditions that he had that didn't enable him to take his son to the baseball game. But he did lots of other good things. Yeah. And so to focus on that and to remember that. Yeah. Because if, you know, we have to make our mind balanced about things. If all we focus on was the lack or the trauma or the whatever, then we get so completely overwhelmed and distorted in our way of relating to people. You know? And I think it's really important to consistently bring ourselves back to seeing the kindness of others. I mean, that's a big part of the bodhicitta training. Because we can't develop love and compassion for people if we don't see them as kind. And we don't see them as kind as long as we let our angry mind run rampant, constantly criticizing and picking, yeah, at others. Yeah, so you know, always bringing ourselves back. The kindness, when they were my parents, how were they kind? And you look around at the way parents are kind to their kids. Yeah. I mean, when Naomi and Ryder come, and just watch, you know, watch how they are with their kids. With their kid, they only have one now. Okay, but watch. And think, you know, that's how they used to take care of me, whoever it was that took care of us. You know? Or watch, you know, how a mother dog or a mother cat takes care of the litter. Yeah. Watch how the turkeys take care of their little babies. You know? Gather them all together and sit on them to protect them. You know, the mother completely endangering her own life, yeah, to protect her babies, and to think, you know, that's what other beings have done for me. Just like that. Okay? So it's very good to meditate on this again and again. And whenever your mind comes up, yes, but, and then the story about this and that and the other thing, say, yes, that happened, and this also happened. This kindness also happened. Okay? Okay, so we'll continue this next week about the kindness of our parents, but start to think about it, start to notice it.
May the spiritual
teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual masters be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West Floor.